Welcome. My name is Randy Clemens. I'll be your host today for the Parts Fast and Easy Altium DB Library demo. I'll leave a link in the download below where you can download a copy of Parts to play with for yourself. That link will be over at pcbpartsblogspot.com. Extract the download onto your drive somewhere. Here I've chosen to extract it onto my C drive in a folder called Parts. To install the library in Altium, we would first select our Components panel down at the lower right-hand corner of the screen, select Components, and in the Components panel tab, select File-Based Library Preferences, and we would select the Installed tab, Installed button down below, navigate to where you've extracted the parts database demo, and select the parts DBLib file. Looking for a DBLib file. So if you don't see it here, you might want to filter for it. And there it is, parts DBLib. And that's what we've installed here. And then you select close. Also, you might want to organize your panel a little bit. That's beyond the scope of what we're going to cover here today, but you can always decide what columns you want to select and display here by going through the options. Anyway, that's all there is to getting the library installed and up and running. And then if you like, there's a user-friendly and intuitive front end that I call Parts. That's optional use. It's not required, but it'll certainly make creating and managing your library a lot easier. And you'll find that in the Downloads folder. If you'd like to use the Parts database without using the Parts front end, you can simply select your Parts DBLib, double click on it. It's also in the download folder. And after you've downloaded that, you can go to the table browser and you can right click there and you can add new components, delete components, edit components, open symbol, open footprints. And so you can use that editor that's built into Altium. But again, if you're looking for something a little more user-friendly and faster, take a look at the Parts front end. It's completely optional. Anyway, you can get yourself a free working database that's been proven over the years to work quite well, and then decide whether or not you'd like to use the Parts front end. Next, let's take a look at how quick the Parts front end is. If we completely close the application and then we open it again, you'll see that it's up and running in about 1 second. I'd say that's pretty fast. Okay, so next let's look at how quickly we can create another component. So let's say that we would like to create another 0402 resistor in our library, and we need a 200k ohm resistor. Well, we see here we have a 100k ohm resistor, and it's already got a symbol, it already has a footprint. We could just simply select the description like this, come down here to this label that says Octopart Search for selected part description or part number, and click on that. And then we can just edit the description slightly in Octopart, hit enter. We'll find our 200k ohm resistor there. We'll just take this one here over at Mauser. And once we've located our resistor that we'd like to use, I'm just going to move that screen off for a moment so you can see the Parts front end. And then we're going to select Make Like, because we're going to reuse the same footprint and symbol. And now over in the Mauser web page, we'll hit Control A on our keyboard to highlight, to select all, and then we can just drag and drop that to the hat. That'll fill in all the parametric data for us except for the data sheet. The data sheet link is not shown as a link here, but it is here. All you need to do is drag and drop it to the datasheet folder, and you're done with creating all your parametric data for the part. So you can see here this is 30,024 that we just created. Take a look in our libraries panel, and you can see that if we hit a refresh, there's our 30,024. So there's our 200k ohm resistor. It's really that quick and easy to add another part to the library. Next, let's take a look at how easy it would be to find footprints and symbols if we needed them. So in this particular case, we didn't need a footprint or symbol because we already had a footprint and symbol. But if we didn't, we could have gone up to the models, selected that, and you might just want to take a look at Octopart first. And sure enough, there's our CAD models right there. And so we can see that we can download those from SnapCAD if we like. But also in the parts front end, we had other options. We could have looked and see if PCB libraries had a footprint, and they do. There it is right there. And we could look in Ultra Librarian. They also have footprint that we could download and use, or we could use search engine. And we see they also have a footprint and symbol that we could download and use. And if we wanted to open all of the library sources at one time, we could select this label right here. That would open a link to all of the possible library sources that you can just click through and see if there's anything there for you. Also, there's a link here at 3D Central. That's not to find the footprint and symbol, but that's to aid in looking for 3D step models that might be available over on 3D Central. Also, you can save any URL link that you like right here in the top. A lot of times I like to save my downloads folder there. Here's a little Easter egg for you, hidden feature. If we delete the URL and then double click in it, it'll just fill in your downloads folder. And then the next time you go there, you'll see it's a sticky feature, so whatever you put in there, when you close it, it'll be there next time. And then we can also open the URL, whatever that is. So you can see there, that's our downloads folder. It can be handy at times. And again, that could have been anything. You could have put Notepad in there, for example, and it would open Notepad for you. So, or Excel, whatever. You know, it's a universal. Anyway, I typically use it to keep my downloads. Next, let's take a look at how easy it is to search for or filter records in the parts database. So we'd select our filters tab, and you can see we have some predefined filters right here with these labels. For example, the default was to have resistor 0402, but we could select whatever footprint we might want there, hit apply, and you notice there's our resistors, and they're also sorted in order. Okay, so same thing, we might do capacitors, apply, and that would be our capacitors, and they're also sorted in order there for you. Same thing for inductors, going to be sorted. So anyway, you can do a quick fill in by selecting these right here, or if you're searching for a part number, you might select that and then finish the part number. Also, this button in the middle, that'll put your cursor in between two wildcards. That can be handy for quickly finding something that, like here we'll have some part numbers that start with 16. So we've got one here that started with 16 TQ. So, or we might start by description, and we might want to say, okay, inductor. So we might find all our inductors, and if you need more descriptions, we could add another button here, and we might say, okay, 2.7, and we would end up at our 2.7 nanohenries. Again, might find it easier just to use the drop-down menus though. So here we've got our inductor, for example. Let's do resistors because I know there's a little bit more in this demo database than that. We could select our 0603 resistors and hit apply. So there's only one in the database. Anyway, that's just all there is to finding and filtering. And so once you've filtered, you may have noticed here, like when I went to that 0603, it's filtered right there. And if you want to take time to install some scripts in the parts, it's one of the configuration options. You just take the scripts that are in the download and come over to the configuration tab here and select the path to your scripts. And you would pick your part scripts. Apply changes. And with those scripts installed, then in Altium, you'd also need to install some scripts, and I cover that in another video, but I just want to show you what you're capable of doing. So we would hit place part, and there's our 1K ohm resistor. So looking back at the parts front end, there's that 1K ohm resistor. So let's do a show all, and we'll come down here and we'll do a ferrite bead this time. So again, there's our ferrite bead, and we'll do one more. We'll do this IC. Okay. And also in my case, I chose to add a shortcut key, letter N. There's not very many shortcut keys available in Altium, but N's not taken. So if I want, I can also just point to somewhere on the schematic and touch the N key, and that will place whatever part was last selected in the parts front end. Of course, you can always use your placements, the usual placements from the components panel, but if you've used the parts front end to find and filter your part, if you like, you can use the scripts to very quickly and easily place those parts. Next, we'll look at copying or cloning a record. I don't recommend doing this, but some people want to do it, so the feature is available. You would just right-click on a record in the lower panel, right-click and copy, and then right where the asterisk is, click again, right-click, paste. And at that point, you can see that we've duplicated the record, except we don't have the ID filled in, which will be automatically filled in for us as soon as we either hit enter key or try to scroll away. And notice that the parts front end also warned us that we have a duplicate part number in our database now. So I mean, we probably don't want a duplicate in there, which is one of the reasons I don't really care to clone so much. But the real reason I don't like to clone is because, yeah, you can go through here and start editing this, say, okay, this will be a 300K now, but you've got to be very careful to make sure you edit it everywhere. Up here, maybe the tolerance changes, the part number's got to change, the links, the SKUs part number. So anyway, you're just have too much opportunity to overlook editing the data. So I would much rather prefer to using make like and drag and drop over from Mouser or DigiKey, because the other thing that you've probably seen by now is that I'll delete that duplicate so it'll quit nagging us. But you may have noticed by now that if we were to sort these and look at them, that you'll see very consistent displays for the resistors and the capacitors and the inductors. And so that makes a very clean looking bill of material. And this will be the same pattern regardless of whether you bring it in from DigiKey or Mouser. And that's because when you bring the data over from DigiKey or Mouser, what the tool actually does is it takes all of the parametric data and builds a description. So you can see here, for example, we don't have a description yet. And when we hit save, it's built for us. And it builds it by looking at the part type and the value of the part, the tolerance of the part, the package, etc., dielectric type. Anyway, it's built up for you. So, and that's an option. If you don't want to use that, you can always turn that option off. You can see here it was on the save, verify, build description for capacitors, resistors, inductors when part description is blank. And of course, it's blank when the record's new. So when we did our drag and drop from DigiKey or Mouser, we also built it at that time. Next, we'll take a look at verifying files. Verifying files can be an important feature to help save you problems when you're trying to place parts from the components panel where there may be missing footprints or symbols. Anyway, if we select verify files, and if you're using the designer version of the parts front end, you'll only be able to verify the current record, so you'd be doing the records one at a time. But in the librarian mode, you can do all records, and you can also verify any data sheets and any CAD model files that you might have stored. And also you have an option to create library paths and make a library report. But anyway, let's go through without them checked once. If we hit verify, you can see it's done. So that means it didn't have any problem finding any of these footprints or any of these references. So let's look at a case now where here's a footprint reference. We'll make a fictitious one. So we know that reference doesn't really exist in this library because this is the reference that's in the library. But if we try to hit save now, you'll see the tool, what it does is it looks in the file, reads it, finds the actual reference that's in there, and recommends that you change it and ask if you'd like to. So we hit yes, and it sets it back. So let's look at the case where maybe you have a file name for a file that no longer exists, or it's just wrong. So we'll make a wrong file name there. Again, we'll hit save, and you can see right away that tells us the file doesn't exist. So if we were to select our symbols button here and do a select, we could just go to the last characters here and start chopping them back. And as soon as you've chopped back enough characters, you'll probably find the symbol that you were looking for. And we'll select that, and we'll change it from the wrong symbol to the correct symbol. And what about if we had no symbol? So there's a case where we have the symbols missing. And so if the symbol path isn't there, it's a don't care. And the reason it's a don't care is because if you were to look into Altium, you won't find that symbol there either unless you provide a path. Okay. And notice because the reference is already lit here when we select our symbol, I'll try to help you find it. So we've already pre-populated it here. So it kind of speeds that process up too. Which leads to another point. And that's one of the options in the parts configuration is to enforce verifying the library files and references, what we just did. But you can also right up here, check this one here, and then you can enforce that the file names and library references are matched. So what do I mean by that? Let's take a look. Notice in here, first of all, let's just do a quick verify again, and we'll see that we don't have any issues. Notice that the footprint reference name is exactly the same as the file name. Well, you might be thinking, what's the value of that? Well, if you store all of your symbols in the same folder, didn't mean to open that, let's do that. What I was trying to do is a select. But if you store all of your symbols in the same folder and they all have a name that equals the reference, well, you're 100% guaranteed then that you have no duplicate references. And you're also guaranteed you have no duplicate footprints, because if they're all stored in the same folder again and they all have this file name that equals the reference, it's impossible to have a duplicate because you would have to overwrite the file. So I highly encourage people to keep their symbols and footprints in single one-part files. The parts front end does, by the way, support multiple part files. If you prefer to use large library files where you have 100 footprints in the same file or multiple symbols in the same file, it will also work with that. But you won't be able to have the benefit of being guaranteed that you don't have duplicate references. The verify files will still work. It'll read through the file and find that the reference is in that large library file. But anyway, I highly recommend using single files for data integrity. Okay, the last feature we'll look at is tools, but we're only going to briefly look at that because it's too deep of a topic to go into in this video. But I do want you to know that you can very quickly back up your parts database by selecting backup parts, and we can compact it if it's an Access database. If it's not Access, if it's MySQL, this would be grayed out. We would just simply select your backup folder if it's not already selected, and then run backup. And right now it's just telling us that it can't compact the database in the back end because another application or user has it locked, and that's because it's open in Altium. But we did go ahead and export the Excel tables, and we can see that if we open there, and there's our tables, and so we can use those to back up our database. So let's just take a quick look at that. What we're going to do is in the parts front end, hit Control A and the delete key. That will have deleted all the records in the parts front end, and then we can go under Tools, Import Excel, and we can go back and select that file that was created, the Excel file, and the download, map the fields across, and then we can do an update, and all of our data would have been restored. So, and you can also, in that backup feature, you can select this to do daily backups if you want. You'll need to open if you're using daily backups, you'll need to open the backup folder occasionally and probably delete a few files, because there will only be one file per day in here though, because it'll overwrite the day file each time that you close the parts front end. So these files will either be yesterday or the latest ones today when you last closed the parts front end. Anyway, there's a lot more features involved in the parts front end, but briefly, you can import libraries, export Excel, which is exporting your database. You can import it as I just showed you. You can create MySQL scripts that will take the database that you created here in Altium. When those scripts are run in SQL Workbench, they'll quickly create the MySQL database that's compatible with the parts database that you already had in Access. You can export the data from the parts front end, and then you can load the data into the MySQL database. And cloning tables has to do with when you're a MySQL user and you want to create a local copy of your database and Access to work with temporarily to do bulk work, and then you can load that back into SQL. There's also a clean parts button that you can do there to find any duplicate parts that might be in the parts front end, and to clean symbols and clean footprints. Cleaning symbols and footprints is simply just a matter of going through, selecting the files, and hitting OK. And you can see we archived one file and went to the boneyard. It wasn't actually deleted. If we go up to Explore and open our back-end folder where we're at, we can look in our boneyard and we'd see we have a PCB library file here that wasn't being used in the parts front end as one of the records, so it got moved to the boneyard. Same thing for footprints. If they're built up in your database and you're not really using them anymore, you can move them to the boneyard by using that cleanup feature. Anyway, that's a wrap for today. Just be aware that there is also a lot of configuration options. You can download parts, look through them if you like. And if you have any questions, please contact me over at Parts. I'd be happy to give you a free demonstration, no hassles. And I was just trying to get back to the blog just to point out that if you select the contact parts, you can fill in your name and email address there and make a comment if you like, and I can get back to you and give you a demonstration or answer any questions you have about using the parts application with Altium. Thank you for watching the video. Have a great day.